Testing. Good morning and welcome to the monthly board workshop where the various committees have the opportunity to report to the board as to the things that are going on in their committee, actions they've taken, issues they're addressing, and keep the board informed on what's going on in the committees. It's nice to see a good crowd today, much larger than most of the time we have, but we're happy to have you. And I think we'll just get right into the reports that we have today. First, we'll call on Mr. Jim Miller for the ACC reports.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. I just figured I could turn it off. The ACC we've not had a lot of things going on, new stuff. The last meeting we had one house, but we had 17 or something like that permits for fences and driveways and pergolas and things like that. I was surprised at the number of open home construction permits we have. We have 36 houses under construction here, and it has been that way for the last couple of years. Prior to that, if we had one or two, maybe it was interesting. Nothing controversial. We're going to undertake at the next meeting the discussion that will result in, I think, recommendations to the board on some of the things that we feel should be and could be done for drainage problems based on the surveys and things that are being run. Outside of that, I think there's not anything shocking going on at the moment, so I'll turn it over to you.
Do we have any? Did you have any new plans this past week or past month?
One house.
Only one.
Well, we had one house in the last two meetings. The meeting before, there was no meeting. There wasn't anything happening.
Nothing at all. Okay. Well, it's slowed down considerably then.
Well, this is not unusual as people get moved in preparation for school starting and all of that. It kind of stabilizes, and then after everybody gets in and school starts, then we normally get a lot of permits for, nobody buys a house and moves in and doesn't fix it. There's always something wrong that needs to be added or changed or done, and we anticipate a lot of that.
Good. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
Jim, there's a house being built at 9600 Flags, or Air Park, I believe it is. And
Air Park?
Yeah. They don't have a permit up, posted, so...
They have a permit, I don't know where it is.
Does it not have to be visibly posted?
It's supposed to be.
You might just want to check.
I'll do that.
Okay. Any other comments for Mr. Miller?
I just had a question. The new house that's going up in the development across from PAC in that area?
Yes.
Is that a spec or is that a
No, that's a spec home. That's a model home.
model? Okay.
So, depending on what you call it, the developer is building that and the next one, the one next to it, to begin to get some activity going there. And that I've heard some people ask or question, why did they drain the water out of the lake there? What they're trying to do is get that dried up enough that they can go in there and dredge out or dig out the sand that washed in it during all the rains. And they ultimately hope or plan to seal the bottom of that so it will hold water. It's one of those odd things. There's no water in part of it, and they can't keep it there, and there's water in the rest of it, that they can't get rid of. So that's some of the fun of developing.
Jim, I was told that we're now above 3,000 members. Can we confirm that?
Not from ACC.
Yes, we are exactly at 3,000 members. So exactly 3,000
3,000.
at the end of July.
End of July. That's
That's an important number because several things kick in at 3,000 that we can talk about later.
that's a correct statement. And we look forward to that for, I've been here 10 years, 12 years, and it seemed like every year that was going to happen, and it never did. But it has now, apparently.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to the bylaws, please. Mr. Maurer, good to see you this morning.
Thank you. Bylaws did not meet during the previous month, and as far as I know, there are no document change requests in the pipeline. We were still short a member on the bylaws committee. One of the people who was approved previously by the board has resigned from the committee. So anyone interested in getting involved in the legalities of bylaws, send your name forward.
All right, sir. I think you've got some potential candidates in the audience this morning.
Good.
Might have an opportunity to fill that committee. Any questions from Mr. Maurer? Sure.
Bob, I don't know if this is underneath bylaws or if it's just general oversight, but in a discussion that I had with one of the committee members, Lou, yesterday, being a new board member and going by the organizational chart shows Lou's committee, the House Food and Beverage, reporting to management. But in looking at the board resolution that was passed, it has that committee reporting to the board. So there's a disconnect between what the resolution says versus what the organizational chart shows. And then I started looking at more of the board resolutions. And for as many committees as we have that many varieties of how those resolutions are written. So I'm not sure that is under your oversight, but someone needs to be looking at how do we be consistent so that board members aren't confused, committee members aren't confused, and our members aren't confused about exactly who has the ultimate responsibility and accountability for a committee action. And I apologize to Lou this morning for my misunderstanding. Thank you.
You're correct, Ms. Renson. There is inconsistency from one committee resolution to another committee resolution. And earlier this year, the Bylaws Committee was going to start looking at all of the committee resolutions and initiate what we call, I guess you could call it, a standard format that would cover specific areas that every committee ought to have covered. For example, how's the vice chairman selected? How many members are on the committee? What are some of the qualifications of the committee? Who are they responsible to? All of those areas of the committee resolution are not consistent. And in my opinion, they should be. As far as specific committees reporting to either management or the board, I think the bylaws is pretty clear on which committees should report to the board. And I don't know if that means that every other committee should report somewhere else or not. It doesn't say that. So it's a matter of how you want to interpret it. You know, if bylaws says that the ACC will report to the board, then they're going to report to the board. But that doesn't mean that wildlife can't report to the board also, if you understand what I'm saying. So I would agree with you that it does need to be done. Hopefully we can get the membership on the committee, bylaws committee, up to a level where we have the people and the time to go in there and look at those. There's about 20 some odd resolutions, and each one will require a specific DCR. But before doing that, I really think we need to have some sort of standard format to measure every resolution against. Thank you for your interest. You get in, I really have a feeling that we should not do anything that cuts management out of the job of managing the operation of this outfit. That's always been my personal position, and it still is. My experience has been that committees don't do a good job of getting things done. They do a good job of meeting and talking and et cetera, but that's just an opinion. I have no facts to back that up with.
I think we have some strong committees out there that may be prove wrong, but I do think
Are you speaking to the mic?
I don't have the clarification of reporting relationships is critical. It's critical to the committee. It's critical to the board. So,
Mr. Mallard, do you have any prospects for filling that additional job?
No.
Have you have you solicited the assistance of the other members to?
Yes.
Okay. You're anticipating my questions, Bob.
I'm sorry.
Is there anything that we could do that would help you do that?
Well, I don't think we need another board member on the committee. For one, although we will accept one.
I don't see any volunteers here. Okay, we got one.
Do you have a question, ma'am? Did you volunteer?
I volunteered.
You volunteered. Would you see Mr. Mallory after the meeting? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
I have a comment. Okay. But I don't want to start a debate, but I'd like to refute what Mr. Maurer said about committee work. I think that committee work forms the basis of our governance here, and that's where things get started. And it's been my experience to serve on several committees where there have been very concrete proposals put forward. And I don't want to enumerate them, but I think that's how the process in Pecan works. So I just disagree with you, Robert.
You're not the only one. I guess my experience with committees is not as good as yours is. It's not that the committee can't get something done. It's who's going to be in charge of leading the committee, directing their activity. And I just feel like it's a management function as opposed to a policy function. Now, again, I can't prove it, just have my own opinion, which obviously is different than yours, and that doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
I concur with Dr. Kamen, though. I think there's a lot of good work that comes out of the committees, and I think my observation is that the leadership has been good, and there's been a lot of initiative and very energetic efforts made to serve our community.
I think you're right, Dan. The track record since I've lived here with management running the show has been, well, that's what we are looking at when we walk around this place and talk about how great it is the track record of our management.
I would second the comments here about the value of the committee system that we observe and have installed and have experienced for a long, long time. That also makes a big contribution to the fact that our assessments are at the level where we get a tremendous benefit for our dollar that we pay for our assessments, and it's in large part we have some over 200 committee members that serve on committees for us, and that's a tremendous amount of manpower and labor costs that we don't have to pay through our assessments. That's done voluntarily. The membership sees the value to it, and I think it's a very big asset of pecan plantation.
Not to belabor this any further, but I think it was 2 years ago that under the leadership when Dr. Heinschmidt was president, they did a survey of the cumulative hours that were donated, and it was substantial. So that is, Mr. Green says that, or not Mr. Green, Mr. Ward indicates there's that represents cost savings when you have that many volunteer hours. Yeah, and expertise, yeah, and experience.
All right, thank you for your comments, Ms. Franson. Thank you for starting that off for us. And I think we'll go to the next committee chairman for an update. Mr. Zemsky.
Thank you. Bob, Finance Committee has got something in process that will give you some work. Go for a DCR coming out of us.
The last time you did that, we had completely rewrite. The last time you did that, we had to completely rewrite the R&Rs on fences.
You needed to work.
Working with me on that, Bob.
We'll see. Anyway, Finance Committee met yesterday morning, and basically we're going to change things up. Normally I go through the AFPs, but this time that'll come at the end. I'll go over the financials first. First is the operating revenue and expenses. The revenues for the month exceeded the budget by about $6,700, and our year-to-date, just for the revenue, is $58,800 ahead of the budgeted. The cost of goods sold was on target for the month, and for the year-to-date, we're $18,000 ahead, or below what we anticipated. Cost of labor shows $8,000 over the budget for the month, but for the year-to-date, we're $13,000 under. Other expenses, which is all other expenses besides labor cost, is $6,700 under the budget for the month, but for the year-to-date, it's $97,600 ahead of our budget. We're in pretty good shape. Our net income before depreciation shows that we're ahead of the budget for the month by $4,862 and ahead for the year-to-date overall budget of $124,000. Now, that overage of $124,000, looking at what we anticipate between now and the next 3 months, a lot of it's going to disappear. We'll be at this period of time in August and whatnot. We have a lot of grass cutting, and we have additional people we got to hire. So that number, don't get excited about it. As far as our reserve and replacement fund, for the month we received $164,900, and we spent only $5,148. All that is not going into excess. There's a lot of AFBs in process that will eat up that amount. We are still looking to have a year-end balance of $1,600,000 in that fund. Road and Drainage Fund, we received $56,800 and dispersed $55,000. The balance is right now at $683,000, and it's projected to be about $666,000 as of year end. There's any questions with financials? I throw a lot of numbers out, I realize that, but in the columns, there is a recap of a lot of this in total. That report, that's the end of the financial aspect. As far as the AFEs, I'm going to turn this back to Michael. We're going to start something new, I know.
Yeah, we're going to start something new as of this workshop and have each of the department managers explain the AFEs that are coming forward to the board. So the board has the AFEs in front of them. We'll start out with a radio replacement. Ty Harper is the manager for the security department. Ty, could you explain the radio replacement for security?
Up for replacement is our radios at the that the security uses for two-way communication. It's in our long-range plan. This is the year that it came up to replace. Right now, we have all kinds of different kinds of radios throughout Pecan, at the gates, at the clubhouse, and we don't even have one at the marina. This is going to be a replacement of all the radios, so they'll be handheld, and there'll be the newest technology. There'll be something that the front desk and the gate people can actually pick up and carry with them if they need to walk away. The person that got the bid was DFW Communications, and they've done work for us before. They actually came out and visited with me multiple times throughout the bidding process. So does anybody have any questions? Or
Board have any questions on the...
This is just two-way communications with for the security department.
With the department heads kind of mentioned the bidding process and why you selected the ones you did.
Well, the radios were exactly the same. DFW Communications just came in with the cheapest bid. They're actually I went with looked at DFW Communications, Breakthrough Communications, and then looked at another company online because I know that you can get things cheaper. And still, after the online bid, DFW came in cheaper. Plus, I actually have somebody that I can talk to that can come out if there's any issues with the radio. So, and they've been real helpful with us.
Mr. President?
Point to be made is the cost is $5,200 on a budget of $6,000, so it was $800 under the budget amount. That helps.
Is that the low bid?
Yes, that was the lowest bid.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cody.
To Michael, I guess. Michael, I noticed that all these expenditures are capital expenditures. Who determines, what's the criteria, and who determines whether it's operational expenses, where we expense it out, or whether it's capital? And who makes that determination?
Well, it's listed on our asset reserve study, so to be capitalized, it has to have a value of at least $2,500, and it has to be on our asset reserve study. So it's not an expense item. If it's under $2,500, we have to expense it, but that's the threshold. It's $2,500, and it has to be an asset that is on our capital asset reserve study that we did a few years ago. So we're talking about existing assets.
Great, thanks. One other question. When you do a capital expenditure, does that expenditure, the cost of that get added to the asset that it's being expensed to, if you will, or charged to? Is that, what's the accounting for that, for the capital asset that we're improving by spending the capital?
It will reduce the budget and the capital asset reserve fund that we currently have each month by that portion.
Capital assets is appreciated over the life of the asset.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In a request like this, with $5,200, there are not one radio, it's multiple numbers of radios that cost quite a bit less than that.
It's 18 radios altogether.
$500. So why does this not fall under some kind of supply replacement instead of a capital?
Because as long as they're bundled together and the cost is over $2,500 bundled together, we can capitalize it according to GAP procedures.
Yeah, as long as it gets on the asset.
As long as it's on the asset so we can depreciate it, then we're fine. Any other questions?
Just looking through this, Ty, there's a reference to a repeater. Can you talk a little bit about how these radios work? Are they going to a repeater that then transmits out?
Correct. There's a repeater at the water tower on Westover that is also the Vertex brand, so this is going to match up well with the radios. At the current time, we have all different kinds of radios that don't necessarily work perfectly well with our repeater. And that is the radios go through the repeater to the next radio.
And are they VHF? Are they line of sight?
VHF.
Does it give you coverage down into places with poor phone service, like the campgrounds and things like that?
So it's spotty. It's spotty.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've got a question also. Could you explain why we want to pay for this out of the capital asset fund, and why not just pay for it out of operations fund?
Because it's a current asset listed on our...
Well, I know it is, but I mean, we have like $1.6 million in our capital asset fund, which takes care of all the major assets of Pecan Plantation. We currently have $700,000 in our operational fund, which doesn't appear that we're able to spend that money. So it just accumulates, and why not pay for it out of operational assets?
According to our accounting standards, it's a capital expenditure, not an expense item, so we have to capitalize.
Only because we bundled each one of these together to make it more than $2,500 where we're buying.
It's currently listed on our asset reserve study as an asset to be replaced. And every asset is then on the date when we replace, it's time to replace these radios, it's the current asset, and so that's all we got.
Would we be better off delist some of the items on the capital asset fund then?
No, I don't believe so, no.
I think the overriding consideration are the criteria that you look at to determine whether or not you're talking about a capital asset as opposed to a current expenditure, and that has to do with the life of the asset and the value. And we've established that in the past. As a matter of fact, probably when we did our asset reserve system and set everything up. And we've established the rules. And as long as a new asset or a new acquisition falls within those rules, then we'll capitalize it. If not, it'll be a current expense.
Does that answer your question, Doug?
I have one more thing to add to this, is in some companies, this kind of an expenditure, for instance, these radios, would be expensed rather than capitalized. But it depends on the company and the policies of that company. And we've established, as I'm told here this morning, a $2,500.
I think talking about $300 or $400 radios is a capital asset.
Individually, if you look at them, yeah.
It doesn't seem correct to me. I agree with Doug, and I think we might want to look at that.
But the capital asset in this instance is the system. It's
Right.
the total system.
It's part of the total system. The repeater and the radios, it's part of it.
Expense throughout the year as they fail would then be expensed. But when you're talking about the system as a whole,
Right. Yeah. Now, I think it's okay with me.
Replacing the whole system, just replacing parts of it. But you're not replacing the whole system. You're not replacing the antenna on the tower. I just think there's an area there that we might want to take a look at, because I think you're replacing small items that could come in.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah,
That's when you expect expensiveness over a period of time to depreciation.
Correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
yeah. Bob, just one last thing on this, is that you can do it either way. It depends on what we decide to do, and it's been decided unless we change it. We could look at it and change it, but the way it's set up right now, from an internal control standpoint, I think it's okay. I mean, it passes my scrutiny anyway, so whether that...
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ty. Let's move on to Mr. Casterwin, and he's going to talk about the stable aisle first, down at the horse stables barn.
Good morning, distinguished members of Parliament. I'm here to present one of two AFEs. The first one I have is the stables aisle replacement. That's the area down the middle of our stables. If you haven't been down there in the past, it's currently rutted and filled with dirt and requires a large amount of manpower to maintain. The Horse Owners Committee has been recommending for many years that we do a replacement of some kind of surfacing in there to keep the wear and tear down and the dust and the mud. So what we've put together was an AFE on some rebar reinforced concrete to go in there, dig it out at 4 inches down, lay the rebar in, and pave it once and for all with the concrete, as well as a landing on the other side where the Bobcat ends up sitting. The scope was developed between initially with the committee, and Daniel and I got together and drew it up. All the bidders received a drawn-out scope of work detailing exactly what we wanted, so everybody was bidding on an apples-to-apples comparison. We solicited 3 bids throughout, selected the low bidder, who I believe is a bidder that has done work for us before, and we were happy with it. The difference in the amount budgeted originally and the amount that we're requesting for this capital has to do with, we were unsure if each stall would require extensive repair, the gates and everything, if they had to be moved and all that. It was determined that it would not require, so we didn't have to do that. So that's the...
Any questions for Keith?
Do the stables also open to the outside, or are you going to have to keep the horses out till the concrete dries?
Well, we actually have gates on each one of their stalls that lead also to the outside that we installed several years ago for emergency purposes, so they can exit either way. So.
Any questions for Keith?
Keith,
Yes, sir.
have you given any consideration to how much the mat is going to cost that you will end up putting in there to keep the horses from falling on the concrete?
Well, as what we're going to be doing is having the brushed, the non-slip brushed concrete surfacing. And the Horse Owners Committee were fine with this idea. They're very happy with this. So.
Any other questions for Keith?
Well, just a comment, this is under budget. Mike mentioned that.
Yeah, I thought I did. I just didn't say the word under budget. It's coming in quite a bit less than the original budget due to we anticipated having to possibly do extensive repairs to the stalls that we won't have to do right now. But don't get your hopes up because the next one eats up that amount.
Okay, we're going to talk next about the front entrance planter boxes at the entryway to Pecan Plantation. Keith?
Yeah, the front entrance planter box AFE is if you're going out the front gate, the raised flower beds that are there, you got an island for the that's in the center of our in and outgoing areas, and the standalone island that has the Pecan Plantation logo with the trees. The stuff is a white brick done on a concrete foundation, but what has happened over the years is the brick, whether it's a bad brick or not, we're unsure. We didn't do it. This was a Anthony project, purchasing of the brick, but we have a lot of deterioration of the brick that is going quicker and quicker every year. You got mortar that's cracking. The bricks actually are spalling. They're crumbling in your hands. I mean, you can go out there and just brush on it and parts fleck and fall off. The initial amount when we prepared the budget on this was we figured we could do an actual repair of the failing areas. But one of the issues is they cannot match the brick exactly. So it would stand out if we actually did do the repair. There's so much damage that it would require extensive labor to bring those pieces out, and none of the companies would even warranty anything because the rest of the brick could fail at any time. So it was determined that we approach this with a complete tear down and rebuild. With the rebuild and the brick only being able to be about an 80 to 90% match, it should blend in to the naked eye a lot better, and people wouldn't even know that it wasn't the exact brick. So.
Does this include replacing the walls or just
not the walls?
Boxes?
It's the planter boxes, because we probably have a drainage problem there. I don't know if there's proper weep holes or even proper gravel back behind. So when we rebuild, we'll make sure that they add the proper weeps and gravel behind the brick.
My question is, if the planter boxes are deteriorating the way they are.
We looked at the walls, and the walls so far it wasn't. So it leads you to believe, and again, we don't know if it was all the same load of brick, whether they got the walls could have been a different baking of the brick. But they're also not retaining all the soil and moisture in there. So, we looked at them, and so far they look fine.
So will we be able to match then, the brick and the planter boxes will match?
It'll be about an 80 to 90% match, which means unless you held a brick right up against it, you wouldn't be able to, you're not going to be able to know the difference. But if you start laying it in there with a repair, it's going to pop and stand out.
Now, does this also include the irrigation that will go in there for the plants?
I think we have irrigation, don't we, Daniel? Irrigation's already there.
So that's not going to affect what's...
No, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions for Keith?
Yeah, I have a comment. In my prior life, I know we used to have experience with inferior brick by certain manufacturers, and we got into the policy of always specifying Acme brick because that was first rate. Do you happen to know if this is?
I don't know what it's spec, but all these guys have run a warranty, and they all were saying, they want to use a much better brick, and they had no idea where this even came from.
Yeah. Well, there is a range of quality, I know.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Dennis?
There's no lighting about this, right? It's just the planter box.
It's just the planter boxes and what's currently there. And the idea is to reuse our current pecan plantation signage that's on the island.
Anything else for Keith? All right, thank you very much, Keith. Next we'll have Daniel Van Patten presenting two AFEs, Clubhouse Void Filling and Pro Shop and 19th Hole HVAC. Mr. Van Patten, you can take those in either order you'd like.
Okay, we'll start out with the void filling project. What we've got here is just out of a coincidence. We were doing some boring underneath the back porch with the expansion of the Brazos room, and I noticed there was a void underneath the sidewalk. And we also are experiencing water infiltration into the basement. So through some exploratory holes, we discovered that there are gaps underneath the front and back sidewalks as deep as 30 inches where the ground around the foundation of the clubhouse was not properly compacted and over the years has settled. What happens in large rain episodes, this void ends up filling up with water and it infiltrates into the basement. So what we're proposing to do is to polyfill this area. I approached 4 different companies, actually received 3 bids. Alliance was the lowest bidder, and what they'll do is they'll come in with a poly product, put sensors along the sidewalk, drill several holes, in, I believe, about 8-foot sections and proceed to fill this void in the front and back of the clubhouse. In the front of the clubhouse, some of you may have noticed right before the steps, there is a section of the porch that is settled somewhat in front of the steps. And from what I understand, they should be able to lift that out and level that out as well. And we have another area I'm going to have them look at over by the handicap access that they should be able to lift as well during this project. And that's basically it.
And this was a unbudgeted emergency capital, so.
Correct.
I don't know. Any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Daniel, do you think there might be a likelihood of irreparable damage to the foundation as a result? You know, that this would not solve the...
No, I feel confident that the clubhouse, the foundation of the club is in fine shape. The void filling will definitely resolve any future erosion or water infiltration into those areas and protect the clubhouse for many years to come.
Has there been any evidence of displacement inside, you know, at the edge of the building here, you know?
No, nothing out of the ordinary. You know, there is some minor movement that has occurred in the building, but that's to be expected with a building of this weight. So, nothing to be concerned over.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. Let's move on to the next AFE, if you would.
And what we've got next is the
Pro Shop and 19th Hole HVAC.
19th Hole, I'm sorry. I've got LIDAR on the brain right now. But what we're looking at here, we've got 2 units down in the Pro Shop and 19th Hole area. Through expansion and changes down in these areas, these units were originally centralized in the middle of the Pro Shop and 19th Hole. They're both antiquated units. The 7.5 ton currently has a used compressor that I obtained free of charge from a contractor that I have good ties with. But the rest of the unit is in dire need of replacement. Both of these units were scheduled to be replaced this year, and the reason why we're over budget on this particular item is we are looking at moving the units from their current location into the hallway behind the 19th hole. One reason for this movement is upon further exploration of these 2 units, the ductwork is just a hodgepodge maze of ducting that has been changed and modified over the years just from expansion and change down in the basement. Neither one of the units are maintaining each space individually as they should be. And we also are experiencing a moisture and mold issue in that center storage area where they're currently at.
We are anticipating some major changes down there, and I've already been assured that the replacement of those units now will not affect any changes in the configuration. Is that right?
Correct. This is also in preparation of any changes that may come in the future in the basement area. And it will also provide more room for any changes or expansion or modification down there.
Daniel, back earlier this year, we had a substantial hailstorm that damaged a lot of our air conditioning equipment on the rooftop.
Correct.
Was any of that involved with the equipment you're talking about now?
Actually, these are 2 of the 3 units that were not replaced with insurance proceeds. The insurance company would not accept them as replacements. So these are 2 of the last 3 units left on the roof that need to be replaced as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. Oh, go ahead.
Was that referring to moving the Pro Shop?
No, he's talking, go ahead, Daniel.
No, we'd actually be moving the units. The air handlers are in a storage room in the middle of the Pro Shop and the 19th hole. by the bathrooms. Those units would be removed from that storage room and hung in the hallway behind the 19th hole.
Thank you. Any other questions for Daniel?
Looking through these bids, there's one of them that doesn't talk about the SEER rating. I think it's the Daffin quote.
Yes.
Were all the SEER ratings pretty similar?
Yes, they all came in anywhere from they averaged about 13 SEER.
Why would they use a single-phase system for one and three-phase for the other?
Because that's currently what we have, and due to the increased cost, unexpected cost of this, and the electrical overload that we currently are already experiencing in the basement, we don't have room without adding additional panel, and the units are going to be as comparable as in energy efficiency rating, whether they're single-phase or three-phase.
Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to our next AFE. This is our tower and telephone system. David Jeffries is going to be presenting this AFE.
Good morning, everyone. If I could call your attention to the image on the screen up there, this is going to go a long way to explaining this project. This is actually a combination of two different projects, and I'm going to address each one separately, but what you're looking at on the screen, and for the benefit of our audience here, some may not be aware, but we maintain a wireless connectivity to all of our remote sites. And when I say remote sites, I'm referring to the PAC, the gates, the security office, the marina, golf maintenance, and so forth. We put up a wireless network about 8 years ago. Series of towers. I'm sure everyone's seen the towers as they've come in and out of the gates. This has been in service for about 8 years. This equipment has been weathering this entire time, and we have outgrown the connectivity that it affords us. So what this project includes is to replace the radio equipment on these towers to increase our connectivity, our bandwidth, I guess you'd say. Now, we also, during this bidding process, we ran into a little issue. I knew we had some connectivity issues with our marina, but one of the bidders actually brought this problem to light. And I don't know if you can see it from here, but you see the BRA located right there. We communicate to the marina from the clubhouse directly. And in this little area right here, it was brought to light that we've got a high spot in the topography, and our signals were only about a foot off the ground. And that was creating a lot of our connectivity issues. So in this project, the game plan is to reroute that signal and bounce it off the BRA tower and then back over to the marina, bypassing that high spot, that area. And there's a lot of construction in that area, so this problem is only going to get worse as time goes by. This is a project that's also been in the works for almost 2 years, and we're finally coming to the point where we're ready to begin it. Part of it was negotiating an agreement with the BRA to locate radio equipment on their tower, and we have acquired that agreement. It is signed and done. One of the other purposes of doing this project is, here again, to increase our connectivity, which leads us into the second part of this capital project, and this replacement of our telephone system. I have a feeling that most of the people, including myself, were very young people when this telephone system was originally installed in the clubhouse. I know it's over 20 years old and probably closer to 30. So we're looking at replacing the phone system, but not just for the clubhouse. The concept of this project is to install a phone system. Everything's gone pretty much voice over IP. I'm sure everybody's heard that. But to have a phone system that will encompass all of our remote sites. Single system to cover the security office, the PAC, will afford us the luxuries of direct dialing to these remote sites, or if you call the clubhouse and you need to talk to someone at the PAC, it'll give us the ability to just transfer to an extension. So it's actually bringing us up to more modern technology on our phone system, but these two projects were so closely tied and reliant upon one another that I just combined them into one project. The total capital for these projects was $156,000.
Budgeted, yeah, budgeted.
It was budgeted, yes. But we did get 3 bids on this, and I know that you probably have a copy of the AFE package up there. The bids appear to be quite different, but there's an explanation in there that tends to explain why there's difference in the cost. The bidder that was selected was the most comprehensive of all of the bids that were obtained. They also offered the best and longest warranty and service of their products from the other bidders as well. But once you make these adjustments to the bids, they're all pretty equal. Any questions you might have? Yes, ma'am. That came off of our asset list. We original purchase cost plus inflation, I guess. That was a committee that was formed to analyze all of the PPOA assets and determine we know the original cost on most of this stuff. And then that would have been probably the board of directors. I would assume, correct, Michael?
So I'm not sure. So which company have you selected?
Lantana.
Lantana Communications.
Number 1.
Okay, well, okay, I see it.
Yeah. Sure.
There's a question from the lady in the audience that relates to the capital asset fund itself and how it was developed, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct? Okay. Right, but it came from that. Right. I'm going to let Mr. Zemsky talk about that, because he was on that committee several years ago that developed the whole inventory of all of our assets that currently existed at the time, and did a 20-year projection of when they would need to be replaced and what that approximate replacement cost was. So, Bob?
Put me on the spot. Been over this 100 times. But anyway, what happened is, quite a few years ago, there was a physical inventory of everything available at that time. We had a new little program that was purchased that the person that did the inventory, or several people, they ran around and took pictures of all the assets and tried to find the original purchase orders on them. With that information, we developed this program, and basically it showed the purchase price of it, how old it was, the amount, if any work was done to it. Anyway, we listed that all down, and we broke it out by the individual managers. We sat down with each individual manager. This went over a period of over a month, I believe, very tedious, and basically put this down and says, okay, here's something that was bought 5 years ago. When do you think it'll be replaced? And did that with each item, put it on a spreadsheet for 30 years. If it was due to be replaced in 5 years, okay, after 5 years, when do you think that may have to be replaced? We put it out for maybe 10 years based on their best guess at that time, because this is a living document. It changes every year. So that identified what we anticipated having for each year. But as the year comes up around budget time, or prior to budget time, the managers are looking at what's on that list. And it may be something that doesn't need to be replaced. It can be moved forward. Or there's something new that has not been identified in the original inventory that goes on the list. So that's looked at every year. When we did this spread for 20 years, if it came due in 5 years, we added an inflation factor for each year, so that if they anticipated spending $5,000 for that truck or whatever it was, it would, by the time the 5 years come along, it would be increase the amount that we would have to pay because of inflation.
And it's been an invaluable tool for us as we start our capital budgeting process each year. That's the starting basis is the capital asset reserve study, and then we go from there. And as Mr. Zimsky said, some items we push forward that if we don't need to replace, and if and just the opposite. Sometimes there's something that needs to be replaced that we didn't anticipate, and we have to move that forward.
Yeah, this replacement of the towers and the telephone systems has been out there. This has been pushed back several years. We have several other large items that are reaching a point where they should have been taken care of by now, but we pushed them back because of other things that popped up that we didn't anticipate. But you can still look at this chart basically and see what our reserve account may be over the next 20 years.
And the software program has a picture of every single asset in the association, some 1,400 items, with the anticipated replacement value and any major repairs that are done through the life of cycle of that machine. If an engine was replaced, we put that information down, and it's really proved to be an invaluable resource for the staff and for us to, and the Finance Committee to manage our capital asset reserves.
Now, this is just for the capital asset. We did something very similar with the Infrastructure Committee for roads and drainage and the bridge, if I'm not mistaken. And we went through basically the same thing, or they did a lot of the work of identifying what needs to be done over the next 20 years. And again, that's looked at every year too, or pretty close to every year.
Mr. President, Bob, listen, I'd like to just make a comment here to address the question maybe more simplistic. I think the question alludes to segregation of duties here, internal controls. Did management come up with this $156,000, or was there an independent assessment made? What we have here is a system where these duties and responsibilities are segregated. There's an independent assessment that was made of all the assets, if I understand you, Bob, correctly. And they came up with that number that management has to work with. And they went out and, got a price that was less than...
It was actually an effort with both management and the committee members. We sat with the committee going over...
I understand that, but the point here is there is independent oversight over management, and I think that's what the crux of the question is. And that's what we need to let our members know. The same process will take place. We have a long-range planning committee. We have an excellent finance committee, and they will work with the numbers. They will work with, and eventually the members will decide whether they want it or not. But I think you can be assured, at least I'm assured now that I've been here 4 or 5 months, that there are duties segregated here where we have oversight that, in my view, is adequate. And I think that's what your concern is. In other words, he didn't come up with that number by himself. It was a collaboration. Well, yeah, I don't know about that. You'll have to answer. I mean, yeah, okay.
Be happy to talk to you afterwards. I'm a resident here also, so I am concerned about our monies and where it's going. I don't appreciate an increase in fees if we don't need it.
This phone system that we're talking about is one of the projects that Bob had mentioned that's been pushed back time and time and time again. Obviously, it's serviceable, but it's to the point now it's so old we can't get parts and stuff to fix it. So it's getting time. Any other questions on this?
Anything else for Mr. Jeffries? Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Our last AFE is LiDAR topography, and I'm going to have Sam, that was tabled by the Finance Committee, and I'm going to have Sam Watts, as chair of the Infrastructure Committee, talk a little bit about that system and educate us a little bit more about LiDAR.
I might add, the Finance Committee tabled this until we get additional information as far as costs, et cetera.
Thank you. How many people in here know what LiDAR is? Yeah, okay. Well, let me stand up here. LiDAR is a complicated word. I looked it up, and it has about 3 or 4 definitions. One, I don't know exactly, and I couldn't find that anybody knew exactly what LiDAR stood for.
But they're selling, right?
They're selling it, and it's been around quite a few years. One of the last missions of the, not space station, but the shuttle, was to fly over the Earth and map the Earth using LiDAR. So when was the last shuttle missions? Several years ago. LiDAR stands for Light Detection and Ranging, or Light Deflection and Ranging, or simply Light Radar. Now, I couldn't ever find out which one of those was the correct information. I brought my LiDAR unit today. It's the rangefinder. And what it does, it sends out a laser beam to a target, and that beam comes back and records an image or footage on your screen. That is a simple LiDAR, and a lot of people in here have these in their golf carts. What the LiDAR that we're trying to buy, it puts a unit in an airplane and scans the ground. Now, their LiDAR unit is connected to a computer that's recording all of those distances. We had 2 quotes here. One was from a co-op, was about $20,000. The problem with that was it was going to be the end of 2017 before we could possibly get our hands on it. And being in a co-op, money talks. So it would possibly be 2018 or even into 2019 when we could get the data. The other quote was from a company is $110,000. Now, both systems were pretty close as far as accuracy. The one system in the co-op had a 9.25 centimeter vertical accuracy, and the other one was 5 centimeters. For explaining centimeters, 2.54 centimeters per inch. So you're talking about 4.5 inches versus 2 inches. Now that's getting pretty accurate. If you've ever looked at USGS topo maps, those topo maps are about 10-foot contours. Now 10-foot, height of the ceiling. That's that type of contours is very difficult to do much engineering and planning for drainage. 10-foot, hopefully you don't live in an area where you have 10-foot unless you're down on the river and from your house down to the river, and you might have 5 or 6 contours. 1-foot contours are getting more accurate now. saying, well, my land doesn't drop but about 6 inches. Well, with this LiDAR, if you went the next step, all you'd have to do is put your mouse on any one point, and it would pull up the elevation. The contour map that we would get with this system would be enough for us to start working on some of the flat drainage areas. We have about 4 areas in Pecan right now that are extremely flat. The area around South Longwood, Woodlawn, Monticello Circle, and East Wedgeville. There is very little elevation changes in that, and that's kind of like the Louisiana Denham Springs areas where it was just rising water, not necessarily water coming in. So that's areas that this would help us in. Now, as far as the photography on this is a little more accurate. We'd get 3-inch pixels. Both of them quoted 3-inch pixels. I would say Google Earth, and I work with Google Earth for about the last year and a half every day, and I think they're about a meter pixel. So 3-inch pixel versus a meter pixel gives you pretty good resolution. I'm not as much interested in the photography, the pixelation of the photography as I am the actual elevations. And I think we can get some pretty good data from that. Now, with, I'm understood that with this $110,000, we got the contour maps and that. If we wanted to go to the animation and taking the raw data in that program, that'd be another $125,000. It'd be nice, but it's not totally necessary now. It at least let us look at some of the areas and see what we've got. And I know that ACC has expressed an interest in it, help them on some of their planning. And so, any questions on LiDAR?
You put a target on the ground somewhere that you're shooting in?
Yeah.
That shoots at a flagstick, but the airplane is looking at targets that have been placed on the ground?
No, it's just reflecting off the ground. Now, they'll take a plane or a platform, and whether it's a plane, helicopter, drone, you've got the plane flying along. Okay. They also put a GPS unit on the ground, and it's shooting the plane and it's shooting the satellites, and it's telling that plane, or telling the computer where that plane is, how high he is, whether he's rolling, whatever. It stabilizes his base, so when the laser shoots down and comes back up, that they know exactly where that plane's at. But you have to have something on the ground. Now, for the aerial photography, that's a little different. You've got to put markers on the ground, and all those markers are. You probably have seen before driving down the highway. You'll come across a place where they put an X, big old white X right in the middle of the highway. And those were used for aerial photography. Take the shot, and you've got multiple pictures, and then you can line those targets up. And that's the way they used to do it. Now they will put targets on the ground. I think for the 9 square miles here, there was going to be 22 targets, something like that.
That's correct, 22.
22. So, but mainly that's for the aerial photography and not necessarily for the LiDAR. The LiDAR doesn't necessarily have to have it. And
Was there any discussion with the developer to help share the cost of this?
none that I know of.
It will give us a topographical map of the 9 acres or of the entire...
9 sections, yeah.
Yeah. So that it will allow us to project drainage problems and identify them early and plan for their resolution.
That's correct.
And this is the best technology available to do that.
It is. And I've looked, and anybody can go on and just pull up LiDAR and look at the different technologies, and it'll bog your mind how many companies are out there doing it. But it's it's not a brand new technology, but it's got a lot better. And if you have the right security clearance, you can go online and pull up some of the government LiDAR that they did with the the shuttle, but I don't have that security. I have seen back before, not Desert Storm, but Iraqi Freedom, I was training the targeteers for the bombing of Iraq, and got to see some of the photography, and it was absolutely amazing what they can do. And I imagine they were probably 3-inch pixels then on that stuff.
Sam, if there was an investment made for this, what would be the downstream cost savings for any of the engineering work?
If we had to go in, and without this, we would have to go in and do a point-by-point survey, elevations, and I'm saying for each project would probably be in the range of, to do that type of survey, probably about $20,000. So 5 projects would eat that $100,000 up pretty quick. And that's just a guesstimate, but it would be an extensive, probably a month-long survey to get all of those points. And you still couldn't get as many points as the LiDAR will give you. And that's a guesstimate, but
All that being said, that sounds like a sound investment, and pay it up front and
we
recoup that pretty quickly.
I think most of you were in the meeting with Romanowski, a month ago, a month and a half, and if need be, we can get him back in. And
so in the future, if the developer wants to continue building, and we have this resource, you think he might be interested in coming and asking to share?
Are you asking me to read Ben's mind?
It's nice for us to have, but there's an awful lot of this community that still belongs to the developer that's going to be developed, and we'll have all of this resource, and I just wonder why he might not be approached to help pay for it.
ACC has, as has been indicated, been quite interested in this for quite a while. Until we have what this survey will give us, we will never be completely successful in maintaining our drainage like we need to. We go in and spend $125,000 or $25,000 or $50,000 fixing this drainage problem with no regard upstream. We don't know what's coming. We don't have any way to control that. Until we have this information, we will continue to spend $1 million a year taking care of drainage problems that we never correct.
Yesterday at the Finance Committee, this AFE was tabled, and there was a lot of discussion around this AFE, and I walked away they're feeling that it really needed more in-depth study. I may be wrong. Are you proposing, Sam, to override the finance's recommendation, bring it onto the board for approval? Or are you going to work through the finance in their concerns?
We'll discuss that at our next meeting. No, and we had one deadline, and that was on the $20,000. We had a deadline of August 26th to join the co-op. And I felt like, and everybody else felt like, that was, that's putting too much pressure on us to come up with the answer. I wasn't surprised that it was tabled. And frankly, you can read what we've got on the two proposals, and you have to read it more than once. So, I will, we work for the board too. So whatever I'm not one that's really pushing it, and but I think it'll be very beneficial to the community. But I was pushing it because after the workshop, the board was pushing it. So that's where I'm coming from.
One other comment, Jim, you made a good comment about this particular program or tool is going to give us an opportunity to anticipate where our flood problems may be, but it's not going to eliminate totally the expenses that we have to spend to address those problems. It may minimize it. It also will give us an opportunity to act in advance where we don't have that information now.
An example of what we're talking about, over on Westover, we spent about $125,000 correcting a drainage problem coming out of the orchard, dug a channel, put in the tubing and the stuff down to the river, and the drainage coming out of the orchard has silted in the approach to that, and the water's going somewhere else. It's not going through that. Until we know where those places are, they will continue to come up.
Any other questions on LIDAR? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, so the mapping would just be for PPOA property, not the orchard itself?
I assume that it's got the orchard and everything in it. The 9 sections,
For it to be effective, it's got to include everything inside the river.
Yeah.
And I don't, that airplane's flying up there, it's going to get most of it anyway, because they're going to be flying in straight lines. So, and I just, the orchard is about 6 sections, I think. And is that right? And then the rest of it is about 3 sections. So that's the 9. I'm assuming the 9 sections is the whole peninsula.
Any other questions?
With respect to the funds that we're looking at, $110,000, the Finance Committee agrees this is a necessary item, but the only primary reason I think it got tabled is there was another suggestion that came up from one of the members that Daniel is going to be looking into. But outside of that, the Finance Committee was really ready to make a decision, and we looked at the reserve account for the road and drainage fund, and yeah, we have some monies in there. Now it's going to delay something else possibly, but this will help in the long run and reduce possibly expenses later on if we get this done.
And not only reduce expenses, but reduce damage.
Yeah, this is one of the few projects or things that you could actually show a payout on.
Any other questions for Sam? Sam, do you have anything else for infrastructure before we move on?
Yeah, let's talk about some ongoing projects. Bontura project is complete except for the road work, the asphalt, and Chaney is doing that project, and we'll probably be doing some other road work crossings also. Bell Chase Briarfield, as you know, that contractor went into bankruptcy on that, and it wasn't work that he was doing out here. It was work that another project he had in Grand Prairie or someplace, and with all the rains and everything, he got further and further behind schedule, and we hate to see him go because he's done some good projects, but it happens. Bell Chase, Monticello, if you haven't been by that drainage, it is almost complete. We've got some remaining soil stabilization on the bank going down to it, but it looks good, and waiting for the real test on that, see how it does. Other projects are still in engineering. We're trying to get some right-of-way clearance on one project, and I guess the front entrance road is still in engineering, trying to get with the Anthony's on seeing how many pecan trees we get to take out. We have more or less tabled the projects on South Longwood, Woodlawn, Monticello Circle, and East Wedgefield, pending the LIDAR. I think we can save some money there and give us some real data. That's all I have. The infrastructure will meet this coming month. Summer's been pretty bad on attendance in infrastructure. When I say that, we probably average 9 out of the 12 members, so we'll get everybody back. Then that's all I have.
Any other comments or questions for Sam? Yes, ma'am.
What about finishing the project at 922 Bell Chase?
That's the one we're talking about, the bankruptcy.
Daniel, do you want to speak to that?
Daniel.
I've got holes in my backyard still. It's been a year.
Daniel's going to address that.
Yeah, Paula, we're definitely going to revisit your location. The last that I talked to you, we installed the water meter, and we were talking about planting trees this fall. I've been meaning to get by there, and we will get that addressed.
You only have about 10 or 12 loads of dirt.
We will get it addressed.
I have those big holes in my yard.
Yes, ma'am. We will get it addressed.
I'm the developer, they have some dirt coming out of those ponds. But it's wet dirt.
Anything else for Sam? Just a quick update on Wildlife Committee. During the summer, the Wildlife Committee every August goes out and does a deer census over a period of 3 weeks, and so the committee's in the process of doing that. That deer census will be sent to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department for analysis, and once they do their analysis, they will come back and give us a recommended call number for our deer population this year. So that's what the Wildlife Committee has been working on and will be working on over the next couple months. Let's move on to Ray Lewis and the Airport Committee.
Thank you, Michael. The Airport Committee met at its normal time of August 10th. Some of the highlights of some of the issues we're working on, we have a GPS approach that we're attempting to get now for like 3 years. This is funding that has been provided by the airport residents themselves in a collection that they put into Pecan's treasury to pay for it. Unfortunately, the contractor's drug his feet and ran through some delays, and so that hasn't progressed as quickly as we'd like to, but that would increase the value and the utility and the safety of the airport. So we're still continuing to push for that. There are some handouts that go into the new member packet when people move into here that was antique and had some errors in it. We've redrafted that, and the draft should have been provided now to the new member committee so they can hand out more proper information for people to understand the benefit and the utility of the airport. The airport has need for a multi-purpose building at the north end of the airport that has been considered as a meeting space for the EAA chapter, which is one of the more active in the country, and also for use in the fly-in that we have annual, which is a real outreach for the airport. So members can get an appreciation down there, and it really has been an attractive weekend for the community. We now have an airplane that happens to be sitting in my hangar that was donated to the EAA, and we're in the process of going through some maintenance corrections and upgrading of that airplane, and it will be sold, and additional funding from that will go into the EAA's portion of contributing for that building. That will push us up something over $100,000, which is the majority of the building portion. There are other portions of the upgrade of Plainview Park that have been going on now, or have been in the long-range plan for some time of the airport committee, to replace the cloth awning with a more permanent structure. Daniel tells me that that has been repaired several times, and it's probably not repairable again. The cloth is just gradually deteriorating. We're hoping to replace that with a permanent structure so we don't have to waste money to put in something temporary and then come back and do it more permanent. But there are other things that will need to be done short term, such as making an AMUD tie-in. Our septic system on the restrooms down there has deteriorated to the point where it's almost unusable. During the rain, it was unusable. So there's several of those kind of things that we're asking the board to try to look at doing, that are repair and maintenance and replacement items. In the meantime, we're working very diligently to gather the majority of the cost of the additional add-on for the building. Those are the key items that were discussed at the airport committee, and if there's any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
I have a question, Ray. The GPS approach system or whatever, does that change your landing patterns?
Negative.
For the airport?
Negative. It does not. What it does is, a lot of times people will fly now when the weather is marginal. They'll fly in and shoot an approach to Granbury and then come over here beneath the cloud, which is not the safest way to do it. We'll be able to come in now directly into Pecan and do it and arrive here much more safely. And so the only change, the VFR, or visual flight rules patterns, will go unchanged. But during instrument conditions, when the visual people aren't flying, it will make a straight-in approach with a GPS from the north going south into that airport. Does that answer your question, or did I not understand it?
I think so. I guess another way to ask it is, will there be additional air traffic over populated areas that we don't have now?
I don't think there will be additional. Using the analogy I had before, there'll be less of a noise pattern, because if somebody comes into Granbury and gets down real low and then flies over here, that's got more of an issue than if somebody comes directly down from altitude through the clouds and lands in a safe manner using the GPS approach. So it should actually improve that situation, and it would also reduce the in that case, it would reduce the maneuvering because in a VFR you have to go downwind, base, and final, whereas with a GPS approach you're at altitude and you just come straight down into the airport. So it should reduce the noise signature, improve the safety, improve the value for property around the area, and the greater utility for the airport altogether. And that is, by the way, I say again, that is funding that was contributed by airport members only. That's not a pecan expenditure.
Okay. That's helpful.
Ray, I just had a quick question regarding the new information for the new members packet. Can you tell me about when you submitted the revision? Because we've had some changes in personnel up there, so I don't know if what's in the packet now is the current.
The truthful answer is I don't know. On the 10th, we approved it, and Jason had it and said he would get it to the committee sometime after the 10th, and I haven't followed up with him to see whether that's been done yet, but I'm assuming it has.
Because
it's
just my guess. I still think we have old stuff in there, so if I...
Well, I'm sure you have old stuff in there now. The committee was provided sometime after the 10th, so anything before that would be old data, and the old data is terrible.
Yes, we know that. That's why I wanted to make sure we have the best.
Mm-hmm.
We'll follow up on that.
By the way, just to clarify so you're not surprised, the new data we're going to be providing is a much smaller, simple package. But the key is it directs people to the website so that as things change, the website is constantly updated. So your package shouldn't have to be changed unless something unusual happens, because if it's a minor change, when they're directed to the website, they'll pick up that change. And so I think it's a much more user-friendly and easier to keep up and accurate system.
The information that's in the packet right now basically encourages people to go to the website for any information.
That's what we're hoping, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lewis?
I thought in the financial package, the budget, there's $20K allotted for Nixon approach. Did I misread that? I can't recall. Okay, then what about the annual upkeep of $1,500 a year?
I didn't have anything to do with that I can recall. I don't know.
What was the question again?
The question is the annual $1,500 maintenance for the GPS approach.
There is. I don't remember the exact number. There is a maintenance cost in there. The airport has collected funds sufficient to pay that for the first 2 or 3 years, but at some point in the future, the approach requires that there be a survey done. I think it's, don't quote me, I think it's every 52 weeks or some. No, it's not that. What is it? It's a year and a half or something roughly where they have to resurvey it. And so you pay a fee for some contractor to periodically. The other thing they do is in case things like towers get built up, they're on databases to keep up with that so that we would not have something get built in the approach pattern and conflict with it. So it's a useful thing for safety.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Let's move on to Ty Harper, Safety and Security.
The Safety and Security Committee met August 10th at regular scheduled time. We had 2 disputes. Both of them were non-members for speeding, and both of the citations were upheld. We covered some of the things that happened over the month of June. It was the middle of summer, so we had a lot of things that happened. I'm sorry, the month of July. We had on the 4th of July, we had some issues at some of the pools. On the 5th, we discovered some things that happened as a result of fireworks going off from the 10th green. There were lots of animal reports. Anything from cats and dogs and peacocks and gerbils and all kinds of animals reported throughout the month. We had car crashes that we experienced in mailboxes. About the limited activity of vandalism for the whole summer was on the 24th. We had some spray paint of graffiti in the ladies' restroom at Sandy Beach. And we had the Sheriff's Department patrolling throughout the summer, and I think that helped us out a lot. That was about the only major incident of vandalism that we had throughout the summer. And now that school started, that should continue to decline. On the biggest thing that we had was on the 26th, there was a car that crashed into a golf cart on Plantation, and it was a pretty hard impact. There was nobody injured, but it was one of the things that we want to continue to maintain our speeds and safety. Just telling everybody, make sure that when you're driving your golf cart, use signals. When you're driving your car, be very careful and observant and maintain the speed limits and watch out for all the things that are going on around you. We got a lot of deer, a lot of kids on bicycles, a lot of bicycle riders, a lot of golf carts, so just be careful while you're out there. We wrote 56 citations in the month of July. And what we've seen is 33 of those were to members and 19 of them were to guests. So the number of guests is going up, so y'all be sure and tell the people that you're inviting into Pecan to be sure and watch the speeds, because we're watching them and we're going to stop them if we can. We had 57 calls to the Hood County Sheriff's Department in the month of July, and nothing out of the ordinary that they were reported. So that completes my report.
Any questions, comments for Ty?
Ty, when a driver comes up to the gate, there's some kind of a sign on the window that says proof of something, proof of insurance, driver's license, some sort of documentation. Or is that being enforced?
Well, what we ask for is the contractors, when coming in, they have proof of insurance and a driver's license. And that's one level of protection that we try to provide, that when people come into the gates, that we're checking the contractors to make sure that they're legal to drive in Pecan.
Okay, but that is not a requirement for, let's say, my cousin. I called to get him in. He would not be required to show that documentation.
We don't, at this time, we don't ask him, but if he is pulled over for speeding and he doesn't have a driver's license, then he'll get a ticket for that, because you do have to have one.
I just wanted to check on the gates. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Mr. Harper? Thank you, Ty. Let's move on to Brenda Palmer down there at Sports and Rec, and Jimmy De La Garza.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with Entertainment Committee, because as you all know, Entertainment Committee was off for this summer, but we're coming back with a blast. October 1st is Oktoberfest. Great changes are in store for Oktoberfest this year. It'll be more like a street dance out in the front, like we have for 4th of July and Memorial Day and all that. So, got some special things going on. Hope everybody can come by and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then don't forget to mark your calendars. November 9th is our Veterans Day celebration. That's always one of my favorite things, so please put it on your calendar. And one last plug, January the 28th, 2017 will be Mardi Gras. We've already got people signing up. The theme this year is movies. So if you want to have a crew table for Mardi Gras and you have a particular movie you want to get, you better sign up quick. Talk to Aaron's crew and they can get you signed up. Okay, switch hat, back on to Sports and Rec. I wanted to state from the get-go, it wasn't part of my report, but I wrote it down earlier in the meeting. Sports and Rec is a very busy committee. They have 11 subcommittees that comprise Sports and Rec, and each one of these subcommittees works very, very, very hard to make sure that their amenity is a big plus to Pecan. Okay, enough of that. Archery air gun range. Summer camps were a big success, so much so that they had to add an impromptu class to cover the standbys. Saturday, September 13th, was the PPAA open house showcasing the new building and shooting cover. The range looked fantastic, and there were probably 75 plus guests attending who were treated to both archery and air gun demonstrations. I've got down that 10 new members signed up that day, but I might be overstating that just a little bit. Please, if you haven't had a chance to go by, you need to go by and check it out. It looks terrific. Dog park. All is going well at the dog park. There was a problem with a couple of dogs that had kennel cough, but they got the information out quickly to all the membership, and so that has been curtailed, and FOPP continues to advise PPOA members on how to protect their pets and the importance of regular immunizations. Pickleball. This group is fantastic. The group continues to attract new members, with some playing in the evenings and on the weekends, as well as their daily scheduled times. So stop by the PAC and check out what everyone has been moving into Pecan has seen. 6 members have played in tournaments in Frisco, as well as in Angel Fire. So pickleball is spreading like wildfire, and it's very big in Pecan. Tennis. Summer camps were a big success with over 100 kids attending. The request for private lessons has increased, either first-timers or to refresh old skills. In early August, John Ingram was involved in testing for the U.S. Tennis Association, with pros coming from all over Texas to earn their certification. On September 5th, there will be a mixer with new members, followed by lunch at the club. Now that school is back in session, after-school junior tennis will start up again. As a result, all of the activities membership continues to grow. John Ingram is a great tennis pro. Softball, senior softball, I should say. The call has gone out to all 60-plus men, with some exceptions, to join the Fall Softball League. Softball workouts begin Monday, September the 12th at 9 a.m. at the PAC softball field. So grab your gloves and meet the guys bright and early for exercise and camaraderie. Campground. The pavilion is being used regularly by members for birthday parties, family reunions, crawfish boils, and even RV rallies. The road in the park is still an issue, but it is being reviewed by Sports and Rec and Daniel Van Patten in hopes of finding the best solution. Birding Center. The Brazos River Sportsman's Club has gotten everything back in order. Please take the opportunity to stop by and spend a quiet moment observing nature along the Brazos. Donations of birdseed or hummingbird nectar can be made through Burt Brogdon or any Brazos River Sportsman's member. So if you're in the Walmart or at the H-E-B, pick up a sack of bird feed and drop it off to one of these guys. Nature Trail. Our latest nature trail is now open and ready for our hiking. Just drive or walk to the clubhouse and enjoy a stroll. A personal note on this, my daughter and son-in-law have made it a habit every Saturday to take advantage of this trail, and they're loving it. They like the fact that it's a little bit more aggressive and it gives a bit of a challenge. Community gardens. The subcommittee has decided to start a community garden club, creating more interest in the project. They will focus on promoting sharing of plots, and already 3 plots have been committed to. So that was their goal, and they've already got it, so we're ready to they're going to plan for fundraisers, and publicity continues. Check the comms for more information, but I did want everyone to know that it is in the budgeting process. So don't give up on us. We're still moving ahead with it. Activity and Wellness Center. I have some beautiful brochures here that I would love for everybody to pick up that will give you an idea of what we've got in mind. This subcommittee has worked very, very hard for almost 5 years to be able to present this to the membership for their approval. As many of you know, the Fitness Center has been the #1 requested amenity on the survey when the surveys go out to us to find out what you would like to add to Pecan. So this will answer some questions you may have. We also have a website that is up and running with the most frequently asked questions. It is www.pecanawc.org. And the first town hall meeting to talk to everybody about this possible amenity is scheduled for Tuesday, October the 18th at 6:30 at the PAC. So we would love for everyone that has an interest, a question, a statement, anything, to please come by this first one. Then there will be followed up with 2 more at a later date. Okay, PAC. 48 youth participated in the Missoula Theater, the largest group to date. There were approximately 120 people in the audience. The directors from the Missoula Children's Theater stated that our group was the largest in the region. So they were very proud of us, as I am. All summer camps were well attended, and school is officially back on. So, yes. And I'll close with my regular reminder. Check your columns for all the activities. People are not reading the columns. I read it cover to cover. Please do so as well. Thank you very much.
Any comments, questions for Ms. Palmer before we move on? We don't have a representative from the Communications Committee, but a couple of things the Communications Committee is working on is a Facebook page. Aaron Reed is in his new role as Manager of Member Services is working on that. We hope the Facebook page will be able to promote events in a real-time fashion, so you could hop on the Facebook page, see what the special is for tonight, see what upcoming promotions we're going to have. And first one's going to be on maybe not the first one, but on September 11th, the first Cowboy game, we're going to have a Cowboy watching party. So I'll look for more information on that. In addition to that, we're going to be looking at next fiscal year updating our website. Our website is antiquated, it's not responsive, and it's not conducive to handheld devices like smartphones. So we'll be looking at upgrading our website in the very near future. No feedback here. Okay, any other comments or questions for communications before we move on to Lou Turner and food and beverage?
Food and Beverage Committee was reinstated by the board back in May, and we put together a committee of citizens. And as a result, we were asked to take a look at our entire program and how we could better use our facility and how we could enhance the programs that currently support pecan plantation members in the food and beverage area. And in doing so, we took on the task of looking at our facility as being one of the principal priorities, and we chose to take a look at the 19th hole principally because of its condition and its space allocation and some of the problem areas associated with it. And as a result, we have concluded that in order to better serve the community and our food and beverage needs, and also to provide some additional meeting and activity space, that we can believe it's in the best interest of the association to do a major renovation and expansion of that facility in order to first bring it up to an acceptable standard, also to fix some major issues that are associated with the area down in the 19th hole area. So what we have envisioned from the committee's point of view is to modernize and renovate it into a kind of a sports bar concept that would give it some identity, create a support kitchen and a menu that would support the sports bar concept, and at the same time do some of the things that are required to meet certain standards, specifically some areas in terms of asbestos, the exhaust and drainage of grease trap and so forth, that are all part of the support structure for the entire building. We would also look to expand simply because the facility, as most of you know, has no outside windows that brings in any natural light. And so I know that there are certain members of the community that frequently refer to it as a dungeon, and we would certainly like to eliminate that concept and make it a more viable support activity for the entire community. So the Food and Beverage Committee has developed a concept that would allow us to put this project, I guess, into a working mode and ask the board to first to validate our concept, and then we would move forward based on what funding would become available or how it would in fact get into the system and be supported over the coming months and years. Anyone have a question? Yes, please.
The concept is to move the pro shop.
That's the project that we have coordinated with the golf committee, who has, and I'm not sure the status of what they're doing. No one is here from the golf committee today, but this would, in concept, would only be totally completed when the golf committee brings a project to relocate the pro shop. Correct.
So, my understanding is now that just one. Concept is now to move the pro shop up to the hill where the parking lot is, and
I believe that's the approach that the golf committee is taking, yes.
And then taking the pro shop
yes.
in conjunction with the 19th hole.
Yes.
What are you going to do about parking up there?
That issue is yet to be determined until the site is evaluated as exactly where the pro shop would go. And I'm not sure that they're that far along. Yes, please.
Yes. Do we have a mic for them? Excuse me. And we have a mic for them, please.
Yes, Lou, I would like to know, in the committee, because there was a special meeting that not all members of the House Food and Beverage were included in, and that's when the decision was made, I believe, and you'll have to correct me if this is true or not, to move that pro shop up on the hill. Is that correct?
Well, of course, our committee has no say-so as to what the golf committee does. You know, on our coordination, their concept is to move it, relocate to up on the hill at some exact location, as far as I'm concerned, yet to be determined. And certainly our committee has no, we have an interest, obviously, because we can do nothing until the pro shop becomes available. But I think in this case, that question has to go to the golf committee. Yes, ma'am.
Can we give me a dollar amount on the 19th?
You heard that, Mike? We cannot hear.
I don't need it.
Yes, we do.
Can you give me a dollar amount on the 19th hole remodel?
Not exactly until we would get a design to determine some of the problems that have to be rectified. You know, prior experience, you could look at probably $100 a foot or so for a renovation. That's an estimate, subject to change. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, what's the square footage that you anticipate for the total space?
I think the current pro shop is somewhere in 2,800, maybe 3,000, and then the space that's currently occupied by the 19th hole. So it's, what, less than, it's about 1,500, I think.
What's the square footage in the current 19th hole?
2,000 square foot apiece, approximately.
2, okay, so the total would be 4.
I'm sorry, Daniel, what was that number again?
2,000 square feet each.
The committee's making a proposal based on, I mean, this is the beginning stages of the development of an idea where there's some cooperation between the golfing enterprise, excuse me, and the 19th hole and food and beverage. And so the pro shop would like to move, and they're proposing to move up to the hillside there. We don't have a design for that. That's just a concept that they have. And then the food and beverage group, in accord with that initiative, would like to begin the process of planning for improvements to the 19th hole. So all this has to come together. This is really at the beginning stages of the planning process. We have no information about costs. We don't even have a calendar in which all these things will take place. So it's coincidental that the Pro Shop thinks they need to move to new facilities, and that the Food and Beverage Committee has identified the 19th hole as it's their first initiative. So this is, I mean, you're in at the beginning. We have the board has received no concrete specific plans, and so we're pleased that all of this is moving forward, and very happy to receive the information as it becomes available.
What I have given the board is in fact a concept that we would like to pursue, and until such time as we are given some encouragement to pursue, we're at a standstill basically. But if the board believes that this concept is viable, then we would then go to the next step, which be look at how we could achieve that in concert with all the other activities that go on in the community, and how this would prioritize.
Of course, this is just half the project.
That's correct. I'm not in a position to present the golf committee's position. Mr. President, I have a comment here on this. I think I would recommend that this issue be referred to the Long-Range Planning Committee and get this thing started and go through the process. I mean, we have a long-range plan that has to look at this. Finance has to look at this before it even comes to us. So I think I would recommend that we refer this matter to the Long-Range Planning Committee.
The Long Range Plan Committee representative, myself, has come to your meeting, and we've talked about getting some definitive information so that we can put that into the plan. And when we next meet, we'll talk about that.
So we're going through the process.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's what we need to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, since the Pro Shop and the 19th hole is apparently going to be relocated and will most assuredly fall under the capital improvement expenditure that requires a membership vote for approval. When is a membership going to be notified about all of this?
Well, and I'll refer this to management, in that it's a renovation of an existing facility.
No, I would question that, because a capital improvement in excess of $50,000 specifically states in Section 10 that a capital improvement includes anything that is not currently in existence. And the Pro Shop that they're wanting to move into and the 19th hole doesn't exist now. They're creating a new building. That's a capital expenditure and requires member vote. When are we going to know about this?
Michael, would you like to address that?
I would take a shot just to say that. Yeah. As I said, this is the beginning stages. The board hasn't received it. This is a plan by a committee proposing a change. We haven't gone to finance. We haven't gone to long-range planning. None of this has gotten to the point where the membership has to be informed. When we get to that point, then the membership will be informed about the process, and whether it's a new amenity or the renovation of existing has to be decided as well. We haven't even done that yet.
Well, the rumors are out there that there's a new building going up.
Rumors are the problem. And
yes,
I tried to put a stop to that.
Well,
I asked that to not happen, and so I can't speak to the rumor. I can tell you what the process will be, and we're not there yet.
Will the membership be notified in your progress report as to what's going to happen, you're anticipating, or?
What we're planning, yeah.
Okay.
When there's an expenditure that requires a membership vote, that will happen as well.
Bob, can I talk to this a little bit? This is going to, in my view, this is going to go through the process of all the committees, and all of these committees are open to the membership. All these committees submit minutes of those meetings. All of that stuff's available to you. And, if you have additional questions about that, give us a call. I mean, we're not, I'm certainly for the members voting on all these things and being informed on all these things and for an open process.
Yeah,
so anything that gets in the way of that, you let us know.
Yeah, I just like to quell some of the information that's out there that may or may not be accurate, but that's they're getting it secondhand. All of this is in the process, and it's down the road, and we're going to get it after the fact. And I'd like to make sure that if I'm going to be talking about it, that I want to have some credibility with qualified information from the board.
Yeah, I think Kathleen has a comment. Yeah.
I have been present in all of these meetings. I've been present and a member of the House Food and Beverage Committee, and I'm as confused as everybody. Because in our last meeting, I understood that this was going to go forward as one project design, and that you would be proposing today a $75,000 design project.
Not true. What I asked management to do was to add money to next year's budget for preliminary design.
So does management make the final decision on that?
I'm sorry?
So does management approve or disapprove of that?
No, the budgets will be reviewed by both the Finance Committee and the Board during a two-day meeting, and the Finance Committee and the Board will make the final determination on the budgets.
Lou, did you not state in our last meeting that this would be going forward as one design project?
One design project.
Including the pro shop and the 19th hole renovation?
That's our proposal. Only because we believe there was economy associated with using the same architectural firm to do both designs. It's still two projects. The design and the way that a design might be handled could certainly be done as a single design project, but it in fact is two projects.
Could I just make a comment? I came back from a long trip, and as I told Lou yesterday, this had taken a life of its own, and I was still back in wondering how this committee, what the process of this committee was going to be. I see this as a concept very similar to the fitness center, which, as somebody stated, started 5 years ago, and is finally getting to completion, where it will be going in front of the members this coming March. These kind of changes don't happen in 2 or 3 months. They happen, it takes time for these projects to come to fruition, be completely looked at, all the ramifications of the changes that are being proposed, and as Bob Cote mentioned, going through a process. Some people may not like process, but it exists for a reason.
Right.
And, I do want to just mention one thing. I have a concern about the specific name of your committee. I don't have a problem with the concept of your committee, because as I was thinking about this after our discussion yesterday, I think there is a need for a committee that looks at facilities utilization. And one of those facilities is the 19th hole. One of them is the pro shop. One of them could be the new air park if that pavilion is built. I think that there is a need to look completely at our utilization of all of our facilities. And I think the name of your committee may need to be, changed to have it really look at how vital your committee needs to be as we continue to expand in population, as we have new members that come in and have, new ideas. I'm all for moving forward. But I am a process person, and I believe a process has to be in place.
Well, I guess my interpretation was this is the beginning of the process.
It is the beginning.
And for us as a committee to do anything further we believe it would be necessary for the board to tell us, yea, it's viable, and that the process should continue, or tell us to go fishing someplace else, of which case, we'd start looking in a different direction. So I consider this step one in the process.
I have a housekeeping comment. I notice people are getting annoyed about the request for microphones. It's not an issue that we can hear each other in this room. The meeting is being videotaped, and then people can access it online. That's the purpose of the microphone, is for the videotape.
Any other questions?
Yeah, since this is moving forward, in essence, has anybody thought about, since it's a capital addition, and they're going to be spending the members' money, has anything been done to notify the members and ask them if they want a new pro shop in a 19th hole, since we're going to be paying for it?
I think the purpose of the committee is looking and evaluating the ability of a particular function to better serve the membership. I think that's kind of the purpose of the committees being created. And then to advance those with management and the board is doing things in the best interest of the entire community.
Best interest, though, should be determined by the community, though.
Just
I wrote in the minutes, you made a motion to go forward with a proposal for design costs, is what we're asking for from this committee. Design costs, so that we would know more about what we're actually going to propose later.
Correct. And
You made a motion in our committee, and I seconded the motion that we could go forward. Is that our first step, Bob, that we're taking today?
Well, within the committee,
I've slept since then, so I'm depending on
You were there in our committee that last time, and
the committee has a process internally, and our votes are in fact dictated by the members of the committee as to how our committee then proceeds. And all of that is a process within the committee. That committee action then becomes process one as it relates to management and the board.
what are you proposing today?
That this concept be looked at and either favorably or unfavorably by the board in this meeting next week.
Thank you.
Why don't you give Tom
Yes.
the mic so we can hear him?
It's my understanding that if this is a new amenity, that this gentleman right here on the long-range committee, planning committee, needs to be where the plan needs to originate. Isn't that correct? And if it's a renovation, then it can come out of some sort of routine expenditure without a membership vote. I think that's what this gentleman is trying to get at.
Oh, well, but it's not a new amenity. 19th hole exists, the pro shop exists. So these are changes to current resources or amenities that the community has. Now, how it moves forward has to go through the process, has to go through, come back to long-range planning and make sure that they move it forward. And it has to go to the Finance Committee to give us direction on how and where the money comes from to do this, if it is possible. But if it goes through a process that requires a membership vote, then that will happen as well. And so whenever that occurs, it will occur in an appropriate time.
Tom, just to clarify, long-range planning committee does not necessarily originate the genesis of each and every project. It can be...
Even if it's a new amenity?
It's not a new amenity.
There's a new amenity.
There's a new amenity process.
Process in your policy.
Yeah. And that new amenity process is a document that even a group of members, i.e. the Garden Club has submitted this form, and that project, that evolution, that is the work that's going to be done on the back circle. But there's a structured process. There's a form that is submitted, and that gets to the long-range plan. It gets to management. But every project isn't necessarily originated in the long-range plan. It flows through the long-range planning committee. But does that make sense?
So this plan will flow through you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
Any other questions before we move on?
I got one more comment here, just to put people at ease. I heard mention here that we're going to be spending $75,000. $75,000 is not going to get spent by this association without it first going through Finance Committee. And, it has to fit into the long-range plan. It has to be approved for the funds to be there. And they make the recommendations to the board to spend it or not, and the board can say no. So there are checks and balances to this whole process, and the bottom line is it's all for the members, and the members have to be kept up to date, and when need be, the members have to vote, and it's that simple. We're not spending $75,000 here without it going through the system. I mean, I think that all my colleagues here will agree to that.
Well, the system as it affects this issue, we've asked the general manager to put that into the next year's budget, which in fact, gets reviewed by everyone who has a need to, finance and anyone else. And, as the budget process for the design, in my view, at least, was the correct way to go in terms of getting it in next year's budget.
That's good.
Yeah, should this not, I'm sorry. Should this not be considered two different projects? Because number one, we originally started out wanting the 19th hole cleaned up, fixed up, improved.
Right.
Now all of a sudden we have the golf shop, the pro shop, allegedly wanting to move on the hill. So should that not be a separate project from what the House Food and Beverage Committee has been working on?
Well, I think I made that clear a while ago, that they are two projects in terms of what this committee does and what the golf committee will do. However, the fact that they might be consolidated for design only did not appear to be inappropriate, and it was our attempt, and as was the case with the golf committee, agreeing that if we could save money with a single design, that would be in the best interest of the association. But you're correct in terms of two separate projects. Only the design would be consolidated in order to save a little money.
Lou, may I clarify that at the next board meeting in September, will you present to ask for design costs for the project to be put in the budget?
Well, we've already asked the GM to put it in the budget.
That has to go through the review process during budget cycle.
Okay. I understood that's all we were asking for today was just the design costs, the proposal for the design costs.
No. We've already, at our meeting, was the general manager accepted when I asked him to put it in the budget for next year.
Proposed budget.
Proposed budget, right.
Proposed budget.
Yeah.
It's not approved. It hasn't been through the review process yet.
Right. And he agreed to make it part of his submission for next year.
And who reviews that? I think we're in agreement.
The entire finance committee and entire board.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do. On the pro shop moving, let's say behind the 18th hole or in the cart barn, if you're going to start something from the ground up, is that not a new amenity?
No.
Not necessarily. If
Who decides that?
that would be a board, ultimately a finance committee and a board decision.
As let me just make an assumption. If we would move forward and get a design and conclude that that's in the best interest of the total membership, we then would submit our requirements to the Finance Committee in order for it to be funded.
So in the meantime, we still have a 19th hole that's nasty, needs to be repainted, and needs some cleanup. So can we at least get something down there while we're working on this long-range plan for our members? Because it's embarrassing when you have guests come in and they have to look at the 19th hole.
Let me just tell you that some of that has been and it is being done. The one thing that we're almost cannot do at this stage is to do anything structural that would disrupt the asbestos, which has to be contained. As long as we don't mess with it, we're safe with a little paint, but that's about the extent of it.
You know, I don't know if you're aware of it. Keith pointed out that the structure, there's asbestos there, and so that limits what we can do there.
Right.
And we talked about making those temporary improvements. We'll do the best we can, but yeah, it's not going to look good until we can get a new kind of renovation.
Any other question?
Thank you, Lou. Let's move on to Dennis and Connie and membership.
Thank you, Michael. This report is for the month of July and August. As Michael already mentioned, we now have hit the 3,000 membership billing mark. In the month of July and August, we had a total of 36 families coming through new member orientation. The majority of that, 29 in total, were resale, basically. And we have one new build, 3 renters, and 3 purchases of lots only. One side comment I'd just like to make, and Lynette's not here today, but we do need to take a look at either revamping or redoing the video, which we show each time. There's probably 8 things that I know of now that are either need to be updated or incorrect, and hopefully I can get together with Lynette and see if we can't just do a quick fix on some of those items or look at a complete redo.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for membership? Mr. President, I believe that concludes our committee reports for this month.
All right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. And thank you for the attendance today. It's been very informative and healthy for the processes that we go through to manage the operation. In addition, I'd like to thank all of the committee chairs that are attending to keep up the good work, and we appreciate it very, very much. Meeting is adjourned.